And let's get started here. I'll share my screen. Another great night for augmented reality. Welcome. Do you see the screen okay, Lyron?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to New York Augmented Reality. We have a great meetup with you tonight from across the industry. Barry and I worked hard to put it together, and we really think you're going to love tonight's event. Nice to see so many familiar faces here with us tonight, and it's great to see you all. Let's see who else hopped in. Nicole Washington, Carlos still trying to get in, connecting to audio for like 10 minutes now, but he'll get there. Hopefully we'll see you in a minute. And now, before we dive into the content, I want to give you a quick update on the meetup. So today marks our 12th consecutive meetup. Earlier this month, we had an awesome workshop with Alex Brott from Mousepack, who's on the meetup. Send him a message to say hi. And throughout the meetups, we've had over 50 incredible speakers from across the industry, and today we just hit 800 members. So thank you for being here, your support and connecting with others across the industry and making NYAR the fastest growing AR meetup group in New York City and potentially across the globe. So we're really excited. Also want to take a moment to thank Barry Seff, the father of New York Augmented Reality. He is constantly nurturing and providing warmth, love, and care, and making the events run smooth and continue with magical sparks. Hit Me With Your Best Shot, Pat Benatar cover by Barry Seff is now available on Spotify, followed by Younger Days, his latest single. If you haven't met Barry yet, here he is to share a few words of wisdom with the group.
The words of wisdom being, it's an honor to co-host with Andy. And thank you all for coming here. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Barry. And go ahead and add Barry on LinkedIn or send him a direct message for more. If you want more of that, you can message him. Barry Seff. So here's what's coming up the next month. On Monday, September 13th, we're hosting a meetup on Spatial. And Brianna Scully, who does business development at Spatial, is going to be joining us to test the future of event spaces and virtual meetups, of which you'll learn a little bit more about in my conversation with Cathy coming up. And then our next formal meetup will be on Thursday, September 23rd. Hopefully you could join us for that as well. And then lastly, on Friday, September 10th, music, composing, magic, augmented reality, the future, Chromic Duo is hosting a closing ceremony of their Emerald Future Soundwalk in New York City, powered by the Gesso app. And Lucy, the co-founder of Chromic Duo, is here tonight to introduce the program with you. So Lucy, please share your screen and share more about the event. Cool. Lucy. We can't hear you. Let me.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. There's something weird, but okay. So normally during the school year, the very young student composers ages 12 to 16 look forward to having their pieces premiered by the New York Philharmonic, and seeing how that wasn't a possibility this year, they were asking performers who could use something that was interesting, that's a little bit different than a Zoom performance, such as augmented reality, to create an experience for them. So we created an immersive concert experience using augmented reality with GPS spots. So when you're walking around, music unfolds around you. So you'll be hearing that piece along with narration that transitions you from nature in Central Park all the way to Lincoln Center. And you also see some like visual filters as well for the closing ceremony. So we're happy to see you there. It's at 6 p.m. And I'll drop the press release and details on how you can attend to that.
Awesome. I really look forward to that, Lucy. Thank you for coming on and sharing. Next up, community. Although it's an exciting time in augmented reality, behind the rose-colored holographic Glasses are isolated developers and designers looking for ways to connect with like-minded souls. So here are some things that we could do to foster community. First, use the Zoom chat throughout the event so we could overcome the barriers that we have in virtual events. So you could use it to say hi to a friend or someone you find interesting, or use it to message the entire group, or use reactions to say how you're feeling. You could also use it to ask questions during or after the presentations. There will be 5 minutes of Q&A after each of the presentations, so prepare your questions as you'll get the chance to interact with the speaker. Following the presentations, we'll have overtime where you can follow up from the conversations by, we might have breakout rooms where you can meet other people, and the speakers who are still here, you can join in, unmute your mic, and have a conversation with the entire group. It will feel almost like real life. Then lastly, we have a Slack channel so we can continue the conversation offline after the event. Barry will post the Slack link if he has it in the Zoom chat. If not, just reach out to us. We'll get it for you. Still, Slack's not moving too well right now, so just hop on. We'd love to have you, and I think it could be a really good outlet to connect with the AR community. So hopefully you could help us. And now, warning, we have a job alert. Saul Garlick, CEO of Fabric AR, is here to introduce a new AR job role. Saul, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. So, hi everybody, Saul Garlick, co-founder and CEO of Fabric. Quick background, Fabric is a seed stage, venture-backed geospatial AR startup building the third dimension of human connection. Some call it the metaverse, whatever you call it, we think it's the future. We were founded originally to grow the social fabric. What we were interested is bringing people together using augmented reality. And today we're a company that creates instant location-based experiences. And we've built a new sort of geolocation-based AR solution that allows the AR content that's displayed either by users or by clients who display content to move with the user. Do I have time, Andy, to show a quick example?
Yeah, take till 6:42 if that works.
Great. So our key is making the invisible visible when you're out and about, and we're focused specifically on the sports industry. So we work with the 49ers, the Mets, sports teams all over the world to create experiences that are different from the AR that you know. We don't focus on surface or facial recognition, creating these entire worlds, and it's all mobile first, so no headsets right now. So the reason I'm here is because I am looking for a technical product manager, and I wanted to put the job in front of a lot of AR enthusiasts and smart people. And so what I will do is post it in the chat. It's a remote position. It's an amazing team with people in the United States and Israel. And we would love for you or someone you know to consider the opportunity. So technical product manager, building a platform in the sports world, delivering augmented reality experiences. So that is the shtick.
Thank you, Saul. Great having you.
Thanks so much.
Now, I usually do the latest news and everyone falls asleep. But tonight we have a special guest, and I would like to call this section Latest News Plus because we have Matthew Olson, reporter at The Information, one of the most reputable news sources in the industry and also writer of Reality Check, a weekly newsletter that's way better than mine, to share the latest and greatest in AR from this past month. Here's Matthew Olson with Latest News Plus.
Thank you, Andy, for the introduction. Happy to try and take some of the organizing load off of your plate for this, but I'm sure everybody loves the news section, and I hope to do it justice. I'm going to try to share my screen here, which worked out all right previously. Let's just do desktop, and then you can maybe see yourself, and then if someone can indicate whether or not this is properly full screening. Is it, or
it's
does
not
it
full screen, but we see your screen.
We don't like that. Do you see yourselves mirrored in the side here?
No.
So you just see the slides?
It looks
Yeah,
good.
we're
now.
good. We see our
Okay.
cover, but this is good enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll just roll with that. So
Awesome.
a brief introduction about myself. If this will advance through, you can call me Matt. That's fine. It is spelled with one T. You can find me on Twitter. It's at Matthew Olson. Again, one T is the key thing there. Let's see. Past work. I used to work at usgamer.net before this, so I have a background in games journalism. That's sort of how I came into AR VR land. Reality Check is both, but I will keep it to AR news during this. I am based in New York. Surprise, surprise. I'm out here in Queens. If you're ever in Ridgewood or nearby, maybe drop me a line. And I had one more thing here, which is, yes, it comes out 4 times a week. Not a weekly newsletter, 4 times a week. There's a lot, and you can sign up. It's part of a subscription for the entire information. It's not broken out yet. Trust me, groups like this will be the first to know if it's ever possible to subscribe separate, but you can also sign up for a trial period. If there's ever, any reason you want to get in touch with me about seeing the newsletter or anything like that, it's just my name at theinformation.com. That'll be listed at the end of this again. So yeah, I figured I would recap the past month since your last meetup, sort of with a quick rundown of headlines from the newsletter. And I didn't practice this much, so we'll just see how much justice I can do going based off of the headlines. But the first thing that popped out to me from the last date that Andy shared of the meetup was Epic purchasing Sketchfab. I think that Epic's continued expansion into sort of these, to this group, very, very relevant, very exciting companies, but to the traditional, games and maybe film production space, a little maybe head scratching acquisitions of companies like Sketchfab that do 3D model repositories, make it really easy to get those into other programs, see them on the web. That to me really illustrates that even though companies like Unity are quick to reach out to me and say hey, we are currently bigger for AR. I think Epic's continued consolidation of these companies is pretty good sign that they are serious about this and that they are focusing on an ecosystem. Now, if you also follow news around Fortnite and things that are said about how Fortnite takes ideas from other games, maybe you have questions about whether Epic, has the right has the right heart for that kind of altruistic mission, but that's not for me to decide. And then there's the M word, which folks like Cathy make very real for us in the here and now, and that people out in public, including many of the information's readers, don't really know what it means at all. And I'm doing my best to sort of, in the context of this AR/VR newsletter, pivot towards making that parsable to them, understandable. And Facebook's reorganization of the metaverse, I think that this, honestly, more so than the workrooms thing, which is again not AR, and more than Zuck's sort of words about becoming a metaverse company, these personnel shifts within Facebook Reality Labs, I think, are huge in terms of what this means. Putting Horizon into a category that might potentially have more crossover with AR one day is important. Moving that talent around from the gaming group with an eye towards making platforms that look more like the metaverse than sequestered platforms is really important. And they have over 10,000 people working on AR VR portal currently. I don't think that that's going to be slowing anytime soon. Just check on how many open listings they have, and it's from everything from the nitty grittiest hardware stuff to creative roles. And in that sense, I think that is what you need to take more seriously than any of the sort of talk or flashy product releases, is that internally this is shaping the company's very structure. Another thing that might shape AR and Niantic is actually, Facebook side is this was the month of Niantic news, if you ask me. What they're doing with Pokemon Go, and then the companies that they're acquiring, the talent they're consolidating, the things that John Hanke is out there saying about the metaverse and about their hardware ambitions means that you can't simply write them off as a AR gaming company, or certainly not just to limit them to Pokemon Go. What they're doing with the Lightship platform, I'm sure, is going to be extremely interesting in the future. But what they're doing with Go in terms of responding to the way that its players have reacted to pandemic influence changes, namely in the US and New Zealand, they rolled back this distance thing that made it much easier for hardcore Pokemon Go players to interact with things at a distance and you sort of maximize their playtime, let's say. It was also great for people who have mobility problems, accessibility concerns like that. And the vocal reaction has not yet let up. Niantic has formed a group that's saying that they're looking into potentially changing those things back or reaching some kind of middle ground to make it easier to play, but it's sort of at odds with their mission of having AR be something that you really go out into the world and you explore your surroundings while you're using it. And I don't know, I think that this is going to be something that the entire industry has to think about long and hard, not just mobile, not just classes, any kind of form factor, but really like how much do we privilege being there for experience in close proximity versus making it useful to people no matter where they are. And I think Pokemon Go, it's been 5 years now, 5 years, $5 billion, I believe is the Sensor Tower estimate. Where they go, others will follow. Google's got a new phone coming out, and they've got a fancy tensor chip that is AI focused. But of course, I think that in terms of watching the mobile AR market and where we're going with in terms of new chips, and also just simply giant companies going, we're not going to just work with Qualcomm or whoever, we're going to design our own chipsets and have that influence the sort of way that those ecosystems grow over time. Always worth a mention and worth watching for, even if I'm not likely to switch to a Pixel anytime soon. No LiDAR. Then, okay, so Snap has been, I make note of the other recent hire that they did, but Snap has been sort of pulling people away from Facebook, beginning with Joe Darko, helping launch, or rather sort of push forward their AR developer relations, which I'm sure is going to be a huge push going forward as they try to turn today's AR spectacles into a consumer product that people will actually want to buy and wear. Kat Harris here, of course, wonderful AR developer, getting a lot of FaceTime out in the media as one of the handful of developers modeling these glasses. But yeah, not the only person making the jump from Facebook to Snap, as we will see in a moment here. Oh, this slide is slightly out of order here, actually. Or actually, no. This was about the other Niantic story that day, about their acquisition of Toolbox, aka the company behind Scaniverse. And it's worth noting that Scaniverse's founder and sort of CEO, Chief Creative Keith Ito, actually had a background at Google Maps on the team that eventually sort of gave way, the Google Geo team with Hankey, that led to Niantic, and then Niantic spinning out of Google. It's another way of thinking about this where, and again, folks like Cathy here, or if you follow other newsletters like Scarred Ghost or Charlie, if you're really in it, you might not need to be told that Niantic's history with stuff goes back to the mapping days, and it goes really, really deep. The readers of Reality Check sometimes need that extra context, and I was happy to reach out to Keith and get this little comment here, which I thought was nice, which is the intersection between the real and digital worlds, how to take mapping data and make it useful to people as they navigate the real world, and how to capture elements of the real world and allow people to share it in digital form. Scaniverse, it's a cool LiDAR app if you have that functionality on your phones now, but this is going to be a thing that Niantic then supports as a separate app, and that will also work on non-LiDAR enabled phones soon. So again, they're trying to advance the way people also capture this information around the world in like a significant way, not just internally, but then making acqui-hires and pushing that stuff to a sort of next level of the art. So keep an eye on that. I saw TechCrunch had a story about this again today after the rounds went around on Twitter, and we made note of it. TikTok seems to be working on some kind of equivalent of a Lens Studio or a Spark AR. Makes total sense. Sort of like had to happen at some point, but it's still very early days yet, so we don't quite know what that's going to look like. And trust me, if I had anything that I could glean about it, I would share it here and in the newsletter, but not yet. And of course, if you are a very creative AR type who feels like maybe going out and living in LA for a month, you should look up what is going on with the AR House launched by Lucas Risotto and Aiden Wolf. I believe that they've had over 100 submissions, they said, probably more than that now, and are trying to get people in there as early as next month. So yeah, if you're interested in being at a house where there's going to be lots of spectacles and Magic Leap headsets and all the hardware you can imagine and a bunch of like-minded folks, that might be worth looking into. And then this is the piece that we ran, I believe, last Thursday for the week. AR VR camera tech. Here's a little behind the scenes a look at how this newsletter gets made. Sometimes you have to reduce something as expansive and interesting in all its use cases as the RealSense cameras that Intel made to AR VR camera tech. But of course, like all sorts of handy technologists and people prototyping things in this space use them for various kinds of tracking purposes and interesting applications. And sadly, those cameras will be going away, as Dylan Martin confirmed with CRN. Intel, of course, is going through a huge shift in terms of its overall business and trying to get back its competitive edge with processors, and then branching out into where NVIDIA and AMD lead with graphics cards, and things like this are just a natural casualty, as are things that they've done with like AR glasses, like I believe Vaunt was the name of their prototype. So of course, they're still huge. You never count them out of anything, but it seems like they are focusing in and away from spatial at this time.
Matthew, our time is tight today, so if you could just wrap up. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's great stuff. Though. Awesome.
Yeah, I'll just say hello to Nikhil here, and everyone should check out the writing on Eyeway. That's over at KG on Tech, and a couple other things mentioned here. That's where you reach me. This is my name, 1T again, at theinformation.com. Please get in touch.
Thank you, Matthew. That was excellent. And it was great to have you here tonight. Now,
thank you.
Yeah, awesome news brief. Loved learning about all that. Yeah, good to see them here for sure. So I appreciate you joining. Okay, next up, I must say I am a little nervous because I'm doing a fireside chat with Cathy Hackl. So we'll see how it goes. I'll stop sharing my screen for a minute just so I could see Cathy, and we'll get the conversation going. Hello, Cathy. Thank you for joining. It's good to have you here tonight.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for inviting me, Andy.
Yes, of course. So I took some notes here that I might use for reference, but it's really an honor to have you here. You've had an amazing career so far and continue to do so. You've been a leading figure both conceptually and also physically blending the digital and physical worlds together. And you're also helping people understand the potential between AR, VR, and the real world and the so-called metaverse. And you've worked with amazing companies such as HTC Vive, AWS, and Magic Leap. And more recently, this past month and a half, you released a co-authored book along with John Buzzell called The Augmented Workforce, which I highly recommend to everyone in the audience. So all incredible accomplishments and focus in a technology that just seems to be getting revealed to the larger public. So if it's okay with you, would you be able to give me some context as far as how you got involved into the field and what inspired you to work on this technology?
Yeah, so thanks. I'm super excited to be here. I was actually in New York last week,
Awesome.
but obviously we didn't do anything in person, but that would have been obviously fun. So I've been in the space, it's been about 6 years now. I come from a media background, worked in media for quite a while, then switched over to technology, started off in the live streaming world, the Meerkats and Periscopes, and then eventually went into VR and AR. Worked first at a cinematic VR studio, did some really interesting content there. A little studio that was creating amazing content was a casualty of kind of one of those, cycles, VR hype cycles that we had,
Sure.
that we've had. And, and then actually after that, I went on and worked at HTC Vive.
Awesome.
As their VR evangelist. And I was there during their partnership with Steven Spielberg's adaptation of Ready Player One. So now in hindsight, when I look at all my career, I'm like, there's been so many ties to the metaverse, that it's been quite interesting. So did HTC Vive, then eventually Magic Leap called. I know you had Roni recently. Didn't you have Roni a couple months ago, maybe? I think
You did, and he said you must have Cathy.
Yeah, I love Roni. So I worked with Magic Leap for about 2 years. I was an enterprise strategist for them. And as you know from listening to him, the Magic verse, their version of the metaverse, let's say it's part of the company culture. It's one of the North Stars. So like when you go in, literally the first day you see a video about the North Stars, and one of them is the metaverse. So
Wow.
I'm very much involved in that conversation and speaking to enterprise, the enterprise side of what does that really mean? Obviously, Neil Stevenson was our chief futurist. So, I mean, how lucky were we to be able to kind of work with him over there? After that, decided, well, kind of, I was part of the group of people that was unfortunately laid off, just to be 100% honest. So then I went over to Amazon Web Services, worked in cloud, and eventually I decided I was just going to launch my own consultancy, and that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm wearing many hats. So I'm helping as a VP at a volumetric capture studio. So Matthew, when you were talking about Intel and everything, I obviously thought about the Intel, the big Intel volumetric stage that they had in LA that they closed down. That was quite sad. From I think it was last year that they closed it down. But yeah, so I'm doing some work with volumetric. My team at Avatar Dimension has worked with Dimension Studios in London. So if you guys have seen the volumetric a piece that was done with Balenciaga, I'm not sure if any of you guys saw that, but Afterworld, beautiful way to bring a fashion show into the future. My team at Avatar Dimension was part of the team that worked on those assets. Yeah, and then on my consulting side, I'm working. It's interesting because I come from obviously from VR and AR, but I feel like I'm straddling more of that metaverse world now. So yes, it's still AR and VR, but there's more NFTs and blockchain and virtual worlds and virtual goods and a lot of different things I'm working on now. So I'm working with Fortune 1000 brands with lots of luxury, beauty and fashion brands that are interested in figuring out how do they enter virtual worlds, or, should they be launching an NFT? If so, what could it be? What's the tie-in? So yeah, it's been quite an incredible journey. I have to say, feel very lucky to kind of be able to do what I do. And yeah, and I think, yeah, I'm just working on really amazing projects right now, to be honest, with some of these brands that are just, kind of embracing change, and it's exciting to see them do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you wrote a lot about in your book how different companies can adapt and how they can leverage this technology. Just a quick question on that specifically. Do you think companies need to kind of restart in order to implement the technologies, or are they able to adapt and implement it into their existing workflows?
I think it depends obviously on the company and kind of how much they've adapted during the pandemic and how much they take change seriously. I mean, obviously, I would say, because someone asked me the other day, it's like, how do you get your clients? I was like, they're all coming to me. Like, the companies that are coming to me are coming because they see a need and they want to change, they want to advance, they want to think about the future. I wouldn't necessarily want to work with a company that is not ready for something like that, right? That would be an uphill battle. But what I would say is I'm definitely seeing a lot more conversation, a lot more excitement about, the changes that are coming, AR and VR. For example, I'll give you an example. I have been pitching LinkedIn for a while on doing an AR marketing strategies course for LinkedIn Learning. And it took me a long time, but now it's gonna be released in the next couple of months. So that to me is a sign, right? If LinkedIn believes that there are people out there that want to learn AR marketing strategies and they're ready to launch a course, that to me signals that, they see that need as well, right? So I definitely see this kind of change happening, especially in some of the conversations I had been having with some of the brands. Yeah, I mean, they've evolved. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it's definitely accelerated from the conversations maybe I was having in January of like, oh, I don't know about this, crypto space. I don't know about NFTs. And now like literally being like, how fast can we release an NFT? And I'm like, hold your horses. I mean, hold on, and let's think through this a little bit and figure out exactly what you want to do. Or have a company come and say, I want to release my own coin. I'm like, okay, take a step back. Like, that's not necessarily the best strategy. Sure. So things like that, I think, have accelerated quite a bit. I get surprised now a lot of times with some of the questions and the conversations. But what I would say, at least because like most of the people that I talk to, so when I write for Forbes, for example, I write for the CMO network, right? That's the Chief Marketing Officer network, and for Forbes Crypto. So it's very different. Charlie Fink writes for Forbes Tech. So his audience is a little bit different than my audience. So if you read any of my content, it always has a bit of talks a little bit about brands or talks a little bit about communication or something related to that, because that's the audience that consumes a lot of my content tend to be brands. So so definitely when I'm writing a lot of these things, there is that focus, and a lot of the brands that I work, like a lot of the companies that I work with that come to me are brands. So it does tend to have that focus. But I would say, yeah, I mean, it's accelerated from the people that I talk to, the marketers that I talk to, the communicators that I talk to, the business people that I talk to, the AR component specifically, because this is an AR focused group. I would say they really are changing their view of AR as just a toy or something fun for marketing to an actual tool, right? They're starting to see those numbers, those conversions, those numbers that prove to them that this is solid and this is kind of where things are heading. And then when they start to see NFTs and they start to see metaverse and they start to see all these other things, I think they start to feel more of an urgency. So yeah, so Matthew, when you're talking about like TikTok's AR strategy, 100%. I mean, 100%. I see that obviously, they're growing like crazy, and AR it's going to be a big component of what they do in the future. So
awesome. Do you think humans are going to be ready to adapt to these different remote connection systems, since we've been used to in-person interactions, eye contact, and body language for thousands of years in order to communicate effectively? So if all these corporations start integrating AR and VR in the metaverse into their strategy, do you think that us as consumers will be ready for that shift?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who's the consumer, right? If you talk to my kids who are Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're definitely ready. Like that's where they're socializing with their friends in Roblox, right? And my son coming up to me and saying, "Mommy, can you buy me this skin so I can go to so-and-so's Roblox birthday party?" Like to him, the way he shows up in the digital space is equal as important as how he shows up at school or, at a real party. So it really depends on the consumer, right? And I think that that's a big shift that you're going to see with Gen Z coming into the workforce, is that companies are going to have to adapt their training, right? Like videos are starting, they're not cutting it anymore. So I think that it'll be a change. I also think that from my perspective, I tend to have a very expansive view or definition of the metaverse. I don't tend to have a narrow one. Some people in the industry tend to have a very narrow view of the metaverse and think it's just VR or it's just gaming or it's, just over here. For me, it's really broad, right? I think that comes from having worked at Magic Leap and kind of not just thinking of synthetic environments, but thinking of real world with more content around it, that concept of the Magicverse. So yeah, I think it's going to be definitely kind of an evolution of sorts, and you're definitely starting to see that.
Sure. So you work at as the VP of Strategic Partnerships at Avatar Dimension, amazing company, and also a Microsoft partner, I know, in the volumetric video capture. How has that experience been, and how do you view the future of volumetric video affecting the connection we have with others in the space? So
I'm very lucky to be able to do great projects there, like the Balenciaga project. We were recently on 60 Minutes as well for a project we did with Flo Rida, where he got volumetrically scanned and he's selling a special performance of one of his songs. Did a great project with the Air Force as well. We're just involved in a lot of fun things. But what I would say is the most important thing for me there as a mission is to really ramp up something that we're launching. We're launching a historical volumetric video preservation program to preserve the stories of the stories, the dances, the languages, the artifacts of historical figures or important heritage. So there's been a lot of work done, obviously, with Holocaust survivors and scanning those Holocaust survivors and retaining some of those stories. And we want to continue to do that, but we want to kind of go a little bit broader. We're talking, for example, to people that speak a language that might be going extinct, right? Because you can record a language or you can do a video of the language, but if you're actually in there able to see exactly how the lips move and everything works, it'll be preserved in longer for longer, we think. For us, is that
Cathy,
mission.
to your point, so working with the Spirit Foundation is involved with the course, so you involved. Okay.
Were you guys speaking to?
just
we said we can't
try this. Can
You
you
sound like a
now? Is
robot.
that
You
better?
sound like you're in the
Can you
metaverse.
hear
Just
me?
type it in the chat. I'll ask it for you.
Very AI. There you go.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I'll wait
sorry.
for him to kind of come back in, but
Yeah,
what I
sure.
will say is, for example, we're based in, I'm based in Washington, D.C. So the Smithsonian, tons of museums are here. We're having interesting conversations, thinking through how can we use, volumetric video to preserve the stories, dances, for example, very special. I mean, it's almost coming to it thinking heritage is an endangered species of sorts, right? And in the future, when we do have this bigger vision of the metaverse, how are we going to preserve those stories for future generations beyond just books and flat videos and those sorts of things? So that's definitely something that's very close to my heart. I'm actually having my dad go into the studio next week to get hologram reading one of my kids' favorite books, Llama Llama Red Pajama.
Awesome.
But I'm going to get him hologram reading part of the book so that I can, keep that for my kids, for example, in the future. I don't know. So I think there's opportunities, very special opportunities to preserve some of those stories for that future metaverse and those future generations, for sure.
Yep, definitely. And Barry wanted to know if you're working with the Steven Spielberg Foundation.
No, we're not. We haven't yet, but I know that they did. Steven Spielberg Foundation, I believe, did a lot of work with some of the Holocaust survivors, if I'm not wrong, in some of the projects. I think the New York Times project, I can't remember which project it was. There was one out of USC that was very well known. We're having conversations with a lot of different people around the program and kind of what we want to launch. We're talking to museums. We're talking also to many artists, older musicians, that are starting to realize they're starting to get older. Touring might be harder for them. They want to still record while their vocal cords are still working really well, and kind of preserving that for the future. So yeah, the Shoah Foundation at USC. And I might have pronounced that wrong, so I'm sorry if I did.
Yeah, appreciate it. We're running out of time, but so one last question for you. You clearly have a lot on your plate. So I was just wondering if you use AR or VR or any of the technologies that you discussed in order to improve your own workflow.
Yeah. Well, I've got my, my Magic Leap one and my VR headset. Use them quite often. I mean, when I worked at Magic Leap and we went into the pandemic, literally all our sales meetings would be in the Leap in spatial.
That's awesome.
So I definitely use all those tools. Went into workrooms last week. Actually enjoyed myself quite a bit. It was not the easiest experience getting into the workrooms, but once I was there, had some productive meetings. So those are tools that I definitely use. I wouldn't say I use them every day, but I use them more than most people, I would say.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cathy, for joining and being open with us and giving us great responses. And it was a pleasure to have the time to chat with you. So thanks for joining us tonight.
And everyone, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out to me, and always happy to kind of participate and share and present that broader, vision of the metaverse and of inclusion in our industry. So
thank you, Cathy. You're always welcome to come back on. I appreciate it. And if you don't follow Cathy on LinkedIn, please go ahead and do. She's one of the top voices in the industry, so or in technology. So definitely go ahead and follow Cathy. Well, thanks again, Cathy. It was great having you. Now, just keeping things alive and keeping things moving, I will share my screen again. Let's see here. Beautiful. Sharing screen. Awesome. Thanks again, Cathy. So despite a lot of the hurdles and challenges that augmented reality faces, obviously there's a lot of potential that we all recognize and that Cathy just shared about, and we're really excited. That's why we're all here. But it's really up to these companies and individuals running the companies that continue to push the industry forward, and we're excited to have them with us tonight. First off, we have Paul Powers with us. He's the co-founder and chief executive officer of Physna, and I have a bio here that I'd love to introduce Paul with. Paul's an award-winning serial entrepreneur and co-founder and CEO of Physna, which I recently mentioned. In 2019, Powers was recognized by Forbes as one of the youngest entrepreneurs in the United States as a Forbes 30 Under 30 winner, which is a very prestigious award. That's awesome. He's been featured in publications around the world, including Forbes and Fortune's, various news programs, such as Lou Dobbs of Fox Business, and dozens of others. Paul's been on the TED Talk stage, so make sure to check that out. And he's also spoken at various tech conferences, such as PLMX, Startup Grind, and he won Startup of the Year at South by Southwest. Paul Powers co-founded Physna in 2015, a fascinating company. It doesn't say it in there, but I think it's a fascinating company, creating industry-leading software to bridge the gap between software and the physical world by normalizing 3D data and applying machine learning. If you don't understand that, you will soon. Physna's proprietary technology is patent pending in over 120 countries and is increasingly used as an industry default for cybersecurity, protecting the integrity of 3D designs in aerospace, automotive, medical devices, etc., from otherwise untraceable manipulations from cyber attacks. Physna is also used to increase efficiency with CAD design, reduce supply chain procurement costs, optimize inventory, and make quality control predictions immediately upon designs. Physna technology can compare and analyze millions of 3D models in seconds. It's overall a really, really fascinating company, and I'm very excited to have Paul join with us tonight. He graduated from, I can't pronounce it, but Ruprecht Karls Universität Heidelberg, Germany, earning his law degree and passed the bar with more than twice the required points, which is an incredible feat. Maybe you could teach us some of that tonight. And Paul has been featured in numerous news articles in Germany and the US, highlighting his unique approach to global technology challenges. I recently found out about Physna through their latest funding round. I think they've raised over $80 million in funding, and they're just a fascinating company and a huge use case in the industry of 3D. So I'm really excited to learn more, and I'm sure you will enjoy it as well. Paul, take the stage. It's an honor to have you here. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. You can hear me okay, I hope?
Sounds great.
Fantastic. Let me share my screen, and please let me know if you can see it.
Looks good.
Okay, good. Great. So let's start with the name of the company, Physna, short for physical DNA. And that's where we came up, where we got this weird name. What does that mean, physical DNA? It's really the relationship of things. If I were to take my coffee mug here and throw it against the wall and shatter it, Physna would be able to tell me exactly where those shards go to recreate this coffee mug. I could use the shard to find the coffee mug, and I could use the coffee mug to find the shards. It's really understanding how any amount of geometric data can relate to other geometric data. Once you've bridged that gap, you're allowing software to think of three-dimensional data the way that binary code and current software currently understands 2D data, which is what we all work with, right? It's text-based essentially. And the reason that's important is that when you get into different areas of 3D technology, even within AR, but especially when you start crossing the boundary between AR, VR, CAD, 3D printing, 3D scanning, etc., you have silos and sub-silos, and the silos of data don't communicate well. So what's Physna here to do? I mean, our mission as a company, our vision is to create a better world where humans can innovate at the speed of their imagination by bridging the gap, by removing the barrier between what's physical and what's digital. And our mission, our way to do that, is to create a new generation of software. They're creating a platform. So everything that I'm going to show you, we either already have APIs for or are creating APIs. In other words, so third-party companies can use these types of tools in their own tool stack as part of their own platform, et cetera. We've hired a lot of people from Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, but a lot of them, if you look at look at the people we've hired on LinkedIn, from especially in engineering, you'll notice a trend. There's a lot of people who are leaving FANG type companies with a focus on augmented reality and other touch 3D technology coming to Physna because of how unique this approach is. I want to show you two different products that we have. These are not platforms, these are just products that we built, that core technology. Real briefly, the first one is Thangs, and you can go to thangs.com. When we're done with this, I'll put a couple links here in the chat so you can go to them. Thangs is totally free. There is no paywall anywhere. No matter what you do on Thangs, it's free, even if you have private models and are working with all your friends. Thangs is really meant to be the Google of the metaverse, if you will, the Google of 3D. And it's completely agnostic to the type of file provided. So if you have different types of 3D models, it doesn't matter to Thangs. It can still search amongst them, not just by text, but by geometry. So to give you an example, there we go. Right now we have over 3.4 million models that are that have been analyzed by Thangs or searchable by Thangs, and that number is going to multiply significantly over the coming months and certainly over the coming years, especially. Thangs doesn't just rely on models that are uploaded; it also crawls the web. That's why using the Google analogy is actually pretty apt, because you can search not only what people happen to have uploaded there, but also all the other sites that have been crawled so far as well. So it's a one-stop shop to find everything else. But beyond that, there are other tools like the ability to collaborate with other users. And what'll matter most to people here is a recent addition to the Thangs, which is the ability to view any model, regardless of how it was created, where it was found, what the initial intent of that model was for, in augmented reality, even without requiring any kind of specialized software. So if you go to thangs.com on your phone, it doesn't matter if you have iOS or Android, and you find a model, here's a little brief little video you'll see playing. You can click on download AR, actually it'll say open an AR. Here's me on my front porch with the UFO that I found. And there you go, you can scare everybody in the Pentagon totally free. With a model that was initially designed, I believe, for 3D printing. It wasn't for augmented reality at all. And it's just using that your phone's camera to place that model there. A more practical example might be this, here to the right, where I'm showing you a preview of how something would be that you might 3D print or manufacture would fit on another machine. And so we see this a lot of people who are in 3D printing using augmented reality and vice versa. It sort of bridges the gap between different disciplines of 3D and helps create a one unified approach. And excuse me, how do I go to the next slide? There we go. We're also creating a workspace. And so the reason I want to have this workspace is that even though it's not released yet, we have it in alpha. There's a few people using it. There's also a beta version you can sign up for. So once beta is released, you can you'll be invited to that community. If you go to thangs.com, it's at the bottom of the screen. It says join beta. You fill out a really short little form. And what this does is allows you to work with people in other disciplines, in other areas, and other types of software. And you can use X and they can use Y software to collaborate together on a model. And it'll actually highlight, which is what you see here in green, the differences between one version and another. It's automated version control and revision control. And soon coming to that will be an automated intelligence engine that'll help to even predict, you know, what other parts you might need, et cetera, for what you're working on. That's future state, but not far off. We already have it in alpha, as I mentioned. That's Thangs. Physna also has a product that's just called Physna, and we internally call it Physna Enterprise. We know when we're talking about the product versus the company. Really briefly, this is what people pay for. This is how I make money. As was mentioned earlier, we've raised about $86 million to date. 76 million of that was this year, and over the past 8 months or so. And the reason that we've been able to raise that money is because Thangs has been growing faster than any 3D community in history, but also because we do have a way to monetize this technology. And that's through this. So Physna is as I mentioned, all this is available as a platform for developers, but as a SaaS product, we have the ability to search models with pictures. So even if you don't have a LiDAR scanner, we can use a LiDAR scanner to find parts. But if you don't, let's say you just have a picture of something, take a picture. We can find out what that is, not just categorically like Google Images might do, but very specifically, and say that picture that you took is a picture of this part number, which has these duplicates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can go from a picture to understanding not only what something is, but alternatives for it, how you can source it, and then any other data that your database contains, such as how to manufacture it or where it goes. Obviously, we can go from 3D to 3D. That's our core thing, right? So under this 3D relationship database, some people refer to this as shape search. I think of it as a lot deeper than just shape, because it's looking at every single aspect of a model. That's why you see we are extremely precise with the match percentages. Here's a match of, I think this is a wheel fixture with a couple others. You'll see that there's 100% duplicate here, and there are others that have tiny little differences. And I'll show you in a minute that you can actually see what those differences are. We also have classification automation. So this is the simplest version of ML. So when models come in, we immediately classify what they are for these companies. So even though they have different, people might have named them with a number, or maybe they have different names from different countries, they all share the same geometry, which is a universal language. And so this classification helps them to find it naturally, and also for them to understand what kind of thing every part is, not just geometrically, but when they look at it and see the description. We can go a lot further than that, though. I think I went too there. Every part that we see, we analyze compared to data we've seen from other parts. So we don't just compare the geometry, we compare the data about the parts after we compare their geometry. And then we can make predictions like other names for something, categories, how much something should cost, how much, what the pricing of it should be, how it should be manufactured, what the materials should be for it, what the use cases might be, where it might be produced, how it might perform in real life, right? Anything that can be tied to the geometry or from the other metadata that's connected to that geometry can be predicted. And it can be predicted a lot faster than people think. Once you've got this level of 3D data, you can make predictions much, much faster than you ever could with two-dimensional pictures, photos, and text. So it's orders of magnitude faster at predicting things. This is an example of comparisons, right? So with a simple LiDAR scan, we're able to show somebody whether or not a part that they found is in tolerance or not, right? So if you say that the tolerance threshold is 0.5 or 5, let's say it's 5 millimeters or 0.5 millimeters, you can tell just by the coloration here whether or not something is within tolerance. So that's something that used to be extremely difficult to do. You'd have to have someone manually go in and program what the part was, worry about orientation. They'd have to do a lot of manual measurements. And then a lot of the computer input. Now it's 100% automated. So this becomes something that any company can do pretty easily. And honestly, any human can do pretty easily. There are other types of comparison that are a lot simpler than that are model to model. I'll skip that for the sake of time. This is what I think is one of the coolest things about the company, is that we can show you not only that things are related, but how. This picture that you're looking at here is an engine, and I believe this is Spanish here, although I'm pretty bad at my foreign languages that are not German. I think this is Spanish or Portuguese, and you can see that this motor, this engine, has multiple components inside of it. Some of them are not highlighted and some of them are, and why is that? This is saved as a single file. I don't know if it was an STL or what it was, but it's a single isolated file. Here next to this are also isolated individual files and three individual models. What we're doing is we're highlighting exactly where each one of these goes, and you'll see that we're listing them sometimes several times in a row. So we know not only that it's related, but where it's related and how many times it's used in a model. So if you were to upload an engine and say, I want to buy all the components I need for this, you don't have to have an assembly tree. You don't have to have any kind of metadata. It automatically understands geometrically what parts work and what parts don't. What if something's really close though? What if it doesn't fit perfectly? This is my last point. We can show that too. So here's an example of component finder, again, in one solid object. Of course, it can be an assembly. That makes it even easier. But this is an example of one solid object. And you see in the bottom left, here's a part that fits perfectly. All of it's highlighted. And on the bottom right, you see a part that's not all highlighted. And very specifically, one area is not highlighted, and let me explain why. If you were to hover over this in the actual software, you'd see that there are lines that would highlight all the way to the end of this, meaning it does have this spout to the side, but what's not highlighted is the width and the threading. So if I care about the width of the threading, I cannot use the part to the bottom right, but I can use the part to the bottom left. We can search not only what the database that you have currently, but the global database. And that's where Thang starts to fit in with enterprise, right? So that whether you're a free user or a company, you can search the world and find any part that you want and understand what you're looking at. And once you have that, you're bridging the gap between a two-dimensional world of code and a three-dimensional world of code, where anything that you can program for traditional two-dimensional software can now be programmed for 3D. And this is just a couple examples of what we're able to do with that. And that's it for me, unless anyone has questions.
Thanks, Paul. Incredible work you guys are doing. I'll pass it over to Barry with some questions.
Yes, Paul, thank you so much. You wrapped up right in the nick of time. So we had a few questions here. Let me go through them. I think I guess the easier question may be, what is the file type that you guys are using?
So long answer to that question. There are many file types. There are dozens of file types that we support, and I don't have it open on my computer right now, so I can't give you a full list or deny or approve or deny anything. But if you were to reach out to us, I'll go ahead and post my the 2 links in here. If you were to reach out to us in the Physna team, we can tell you exactly what those are.
Excellent. Cool. And one more question. Does your software work with all types of AR eyewear or VR eyewear as well?
Again, that when it comes to the file type specifically, it would that's something that we would have to investigate, or we'd have to, if you asked us via an email or something, I could confirm whatever file type it is that you're interested in. But as far as the hardware is concerned, it should be, I would think it would be agnostic to that. Like I said, that even with the iPhone and Android devices, we've been able to make it agnostic pretty quickly. But I can't confirm or deny that 100%. There could be something very proprietary out there, and I don't want to say that we can work with it without knowing. But we're generally speaking very agnostic when it comes to hardware.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. The Fangs website is also yours, right? I read that it's owned by Physna. Okay,
Correct.
So I mean, is that is that one of the targets of your business, to be the searchable index for all physical objects in the virtual world, metaverse, or is that just one aspect of, like, what is your grand vision of taking over the world of AR? Sorry, you don't have to answer that question, but just leave it open.
Not at all. I'm very happy to answer it. So we want to help usher in this new age, right? And of a 3-dimensional software, right? Of a new level of technology. And you can call it the metaverse, you can call it whatever you want. Augmented reality is a huge part of it. And if you think of it like the internet, right? The internet was a nightmare to use before you had search engines like Google, because you had to know exactly what you were looking for.
I love Telnet. Telnet was great.
But when you have to go to a
specific,
right. So being able to find a model is kind of like, today, it's the search capabilities for you're using text, you're not using the native medium. So that's an important aspect of it, but there's also not a good way to understand 3-dimensional data on its own. So what we're doing is bridging the gap between the utility of a 3-dimensional model versus the utility of something like text. And to do that, you can't, a part of it's having that core technology, but the rest of it is also making things searchable, making things findable. Having a search engine but not having indexed anything is not very valuable, because even if the search engine works great, you're not going to find anything. Not everybody comes with a huge database on their own. So this database is here to help with things like to make that software more powerful, so that you can actually use it and utilize it to find something else. So that there's a core central location where you can find anything for any purpose, but also to repurpose what some of these parts are for and not have them as limited.
Great. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Great having you on.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dr. Nikhil Balram from Eyeway Vision joining us. Dr. Nikhil Balram is a CEO of Eyeway Vision. It's a California subsidiary of Eyeway Vision Limited, focused on developing immersive AR glasses. He previously led the display group at Google, which was responsible for developing display systems for all Google consumer hardware, including AR and VR. Previous roles include CEO of Ricoh Innovation Corporation, VP and GM of Digital Entertainment, BU at Marvel, and CTO of the Display Group at National Semiconductor. He has received numerous awards, including the Otto Shade Prize from the Society for Information Display and a Gold Stevie Award for Executive of the Year in the electronics category. Dr. Balram is a fellow of the SID since 2012 and was program chair for Display Week 2019 and general chair for Display Week 2021. Dr. Balram received his bachelor's, master's, and PhD in electrical engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. It's a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Balram. Please share the screen and present. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, let me get started. Sorry, that bio seemed short when I wrote it, but maybe in hindsight, I'll make it shorter.
Perfect.
Okay, can you see my screen? Andy, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about truly immersive AR, a novel path to fully realized AR glasses. You heard the introduction already from Andy. I'm Nikhil Balram. Eyeway Vision is a startup headquartered in Israel with a US subsidiary based in Silicon Valley, which I'm the CEO of. In the interest of time, I'm not going to talk about the company in more detail. I invite you to go check out the website to learn more about us. Okay, so I want to start by reminding you of a grand vision for AR glasses that is shared by many of us. And that's a vision of a future device, which on one hand provides an extraordinary experience. It's truly immersive in terms of giving you natural resolution for the eye, large field of view, continuously varying focus, so that the digital looks as real as the real. On the other hand, something that's incredibly usable, it has a form factor close to my glasses, bright enough that you can use it anywhere outdoors, in, bright moon, daylight, and that's efficient enough that it actually lasts all day. The reality is that it's extremely challenging to build something like that, in particular to achieve all those things at the same time. There's some fundamental system trade-offs for AR glasses. The most fundamental trade-offs lie in performance versus form factor. So we created this diagram which shows a segmentation of the market from the perspective of these two fundamental attributes. On the y-axis, I have performance, which in the case of AR glasses is measured in level of immersion. So you start with something that's very basic, heads-up display. It's like a smartwatch in your face. The next step up is you have a TV on your head. The next step up is you have, the TV's on the wall. You have some notion of space. Then you get to full immersion, where you have the dynamic range, the resolution, the color gamuts, and the wide field of view, so you can be fully immersed. And then the last step above that is that when you have this fully immersive experience, you want to be able to interact with it. And that means needing to be able to change to vary the focal plane of the digital content, just like the real world. The x-axis is fairly obvious. You start from head-mounted displays and you get progressively better form factor till you get to the eyeglasses that I'm wearing. When we look at the space, we see basically people taking one of two paths. The first path, which you can think of it as the informative AR path, is basically hugging the x-axis, sacrificing performance, and focusing on getting as far along that axis as possible to look like glasses. The path that most companies have followed is that somewhere in the middle, where you try to find a balance between form factor and function. And in my opinion, that's a very hard thing to do in early stage market like this. Now, we think that there's a third path, that there's this big open space we call truly immersive AR. And then there is a path there for a series of products that deliver an extraordinary experience for episodic use for some specific purpose on the way to that upper right corner, that vision of the fully realized AR glasses. So as we push deeper into understanding that opportunity and that path, we've come to believe that truly immersive AR in a comfortable and elegant form factor, which can give you 10x better visual experiences, can disrupt large markets. And just giving you a few examples from my experience, in cinematic and theme park, with COVID having made most people leery of venturing out of the home, the kind of experiences that need to be provided in next generation cinema and theme park need to be significantly better than what's available today in one's home. In the case of home entertainment and gaming, we think that immersive AR provides a much better experience than you get today with high performance monitors. And it addresses some of the deficiencies that VR has in the context of gaming, things like social isolation. Mobile entertainment gaming, we already heard a little bit about Niantic and Pokemon Go. So in that example, you imagine today or in a post-COVID world, 20,000 people gathering in a beautiful scenic outdoor location or park so that they can enjoy chasing or capturing digital assets together among this amazing natural scenery. But today that experience is you look at the world through this tiny window, the phone that you're running around holding in your hand. It's much easier to imagine what a compelling experience that could be if you put on your immersive AR glasses and you had a hands-free experience enjoying both the digital and the real. The last example I give you is one that we are seeing a lot of traction in, is in e-learning. This idea of e-learning or remote learning was already scaling in a very significant way even before COVID. And of course, COVID made all learners into e-learners or remote learners. And here, this is the idea that if you're a working professional and you want to upskill yourself, we all understand that we are now need to be thinking about lifelong learning. And so you sign up for certifications or programs or master or graduate programs, and you do this yourself online. The big pain point in that is boredom or engagement. It's really difficult to spend a whole day sitting and staring at a screen and then do the same thing again in the evening. So we think that AR enhanced e-learning could be a very significant disruptor in this market. So we talked about the opportunities if you provide a really extraordinary experience. But we want to take this experience all the way to that upper right corner. And the key to doing that is efficiency, energy efficiency, which is always the critical element in mobile electronics. So we need an approach that minimizes power in terms of photons, flops, megabits per second, while maximizing experience in terms of resolution, field of view, dynamic range, and range of focus. So how do we achieve this much greater efficiency? In the traditional approach to AR, you have a fundamental constraint that you have to deal with called the Lagrange invariant. And what this says is that the field of view times the eye box. The eye box is this area, the volume or place where you can see the image when you put on the glasses or headset, that the product of the field of view times the eye box is bounded by the size of the display. Now in VR, this is not a problem because you make a gigantic display. But in AR, where the display is a small element off to the side, this is a fundamental constraint. And so the way people have addressed this is this idea, it's called exit pupil expansion or exit pupil replication. And so you inject light into this waveguide, and then you dribble it across a big area around the eye. So you end up with creating this big volume of light on the face so that your eyes can see the image no matter where they are, how close they are, or where the system is sitting. And so this works from the fit perspective, but there are some fundamental challenges it produces. The loss of brightness, you end up getting a much lower brightness image because most of the light is wasted. And so you have to use heavy tinting if you want to use it outdoors, which destroys the sense of immersion. There is a problem with efficiency. Again, you're wasting most of the light. And then you have a cosmetic challenge because people looking at you can see this light flooding your face. So the alternative approach that Eyeway came up with was this idea that you start with a small exit pupil because you have a small image source. And then instead of expanding it, you move it in perfect synchrony with the eye so that you deliver that image only along the visual axis of the eye, which gives you, which allows you to have a very bright image with very little power and very great efficiency. So here's an example. Matthew talked about the write-up that Carl Gutak did. The famous tech blogger visited us. We let him take pictures, open up the system, take a close look at the system. And so this is from his blog, examples of a real comparison. So on the left side is a photograph of someone wearing one of our prototypes. And you can see a tiny amount of light going into the eye, exactly where the eye is looking. On the right side, you see a classical approach. This is a diffractive waveguide from Wave Optics, where you can see exactly what I was talking about earlier, where you flood that whole area with light. And so you can see the fundamental differences in terms of brightness, efficiency, and cosmetics. Okay, so basically we're saying this idea of moving a small exit pupil is the key to making a really efficient system, really high quality efficient system. So how do you do it? Three critical elements. You do direct retinal projection, low power lasers projecting a single pixel at a time through highly efficient reflective optics, tightly coupled with eye tracking that move that image with the eye. And then if you can do these two things, you get this extraordinary efficiency through something called foveated projection. And this is basic tutorial on human visual system is that if you look at our retina, a very small portion of the retina called the fovea is the only area where we have full resolution or 2020 resolution. It's about the size of the thumb when I hold my hand out. So about a few degrees of arc. And the rest of the eye has rapidly declining density of receptors, so very low resolution. So the reason that the world looks, the entire world looks in high resolution when I look out at around me is because the eye is constantly moving. So we are building at any given time, building this high resolution percept in our brain. And now in our AR system, if you know where the eye is looking at all times, you know where the visual axis centered in the fovea is, you can deliver a small high resolution image just to that small area and a low resolution image to the rest of the eye, which gives you tremendous efficiencies. So here's an actual example. So on the left side is what you perceive. You see a continuous tone, high dynamic range, retinal resolution image, which over an 80-degree field of view would normally require a 5K by 4K display or 20 million pixels. I've actually built one of those displays at Google to do exactly this. On the right side is what we do, which is we do an SVGA image that moves with the eye. And so you have retinal resolution in just that circle. And then you have an SVGA image across the rest of the field of view. So you achieve through 1 million pixels, 2 SVGA images, you can achieve the same visual quality as 20 megapixels in a conventional approach. Okay, so very quickly looking at a static image. So if you add up all the things that you can get as a result, so because it's a highly efficient approach, you can get very high brightness to the eye. So in our demo, that dragonfly is 20,000 nits. You can show this entire scene in bright daylight. Because you can dim the image, you can have very high dynamic range. You can go down to 0.1 nits. And so because of the high dynamic range, you get this appearance of solidity. You get so-called hard AR, where that rock actually looks completely solid. We already talked about the retinal resolution. Because we know where you're looking, we can modulate the beam and change the focus dynamically from 20 centimeters to infinity. So in this example, when you're looking at the physical game board with the digital rock, both the physical game board and the rock can be in focus together. So just in the last minute or two to pivot and talk about go-to-market strategy and product, we're taking a pragmatic approach in open ecosystem, which is basically strategic partnerships with everybody in this space. On the diagram on the right side, you see in green the target markets. So those are enterprise applications and entertainment applications. You see other segments like platform. Platform is, for example, Adobe, Creative Cloud, or the online learning platform Upgrad that we partnered with. OEMs are folks like Samsung, who's an investor. Carriers are folks like Verizon, who's also an investor. Component makers are people like ST Micro, Osram, etc. We joined the Laser Alliance and are working closely with these folks. Basically, we are developing a series of reference designs or platforms that an OEM can license and take to market under their own brand. We're also building our own systems for specific vertical applications like content development or e-learning. If you sign up for a master's degree, AR enhanced learning, you care about the name of the university on the certificate, not the logo on the equipment. So first product concept, you can think of it as the world's best immersive AR headset. Something that's comfortable and elegant form factor, but not something that you're going to be walking down the street wearing, which can use both local or cloud compute. So local from your phone or laptop or through the cloud, with an SDK that connects to all major content creation platforms. So for example, that Dragon demo, which is a real demo you can come and see, was created in Unity with one camera creating the foveal image over a 10-degree field of view and another camera creating that peripheral image. So last slide, just ending with a call to action. If you're a potential investor, strategic partner, contact us. Happy to discuss, see demos, which are available in San Jose and Israel. Thank you for your attention.
Awesome. Really amazing stuff. Of course, we're all itching to see the device, but I guess we'll have to have you next time and you can come and show it. Okay, I think we'll have time for about one question. This guy has a nice question. Rob Vanden Heuvel asks, have you already developed a technology to track the user's eyes and redirect the display with low enough latency so as to be imperceptible?
Yes. So actually, that is a core technology of the company, because no existing eye tracking techniques were good enough in terms of power and robustness and speed to serve this purpose. So we've developed our own eye tracking technology. We use high-speed lasers. It's 20 kilohertz IR laser and a very simple photodiode. And basically, there's presentations on our website which have more detail, because we did a technical presentation at SPI. So the answer is yes, we've developed our own proprietary eye tracking, and it's a critical element to make this work. And you can see all this. We can show you the whole experience, the Dragon demo, as well as the eye tracking, if you like.
Thanks, Nikhil, and check out the chat. A lot of people are giving you kudos and looking to connect. So
well, let me know if anyone's sending me Bitcoin or digital currency. I forgot to mention.
Just put your wallet, put your wallet address in the chat, and we'll send some your way.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
It was great having you. Thank you. Look forward to trying your product. Awesome. I know we're coming close to the end of the time here. We'll finish off now with Hart Woolery. And I just spoke to Lyron. We may move Glim's group to the next time, but we'll feel it out. If you guys want to stay on and want that, we could do it. But let's continue going here. Thank you, Nikhil, once again. It was great having you on. So next up, we have Hart Woolery. He's the founder and CEO of 2020 CV, a company that specializes in the creation of AR experiences using machine learning and computer vision. Hart has been creating software for almost 30 years with self-taught background and passion for bringing new ideas to life. 2020 CV was founded in 2017 and is backed by Mark Cuban. Hart, it's good to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to put these on real quick just because we were already talking about eyeglasses. These are the wave optics that Nikhil was referencing, the snap spectacles. Yeah, it's going to be fun to see, once these things get better, but I've had fun playing around with these for the past couple of days. So I'm just going to share my screen now. Can you see that?
Looks great.
Okay. So yeah, I was just going to give a very short presentation today about kind of one of the experiences I had created around digital clothing, virtual apparel, whatever you want to call it. To give a little bit of background about my company, I've really been focused on kind of experimental AR, so just building experiences that kind of both democratize special effects for everyday consumers, and also just kind of bring fun ideas to life that weren't previously possible, since computer vision has grown considerably in the last decade. What things that weren't possible 1 year ago are now possible today. And a large part of my work involves machine learning and computer vision. I used to, earlier on the company, I would mostly spend a lot of time creating my own custom machine learning models to build these applications from scratch. But now I find it kind of quicker to prototype inside existing AR solutions like Lens Studio, which is Snapchat's kind of AR development kit, and kind of build these silly / dumb prototypes. So I've built everything from virtual lightsabers to talking dogs to pretty much everything you can imagine. I just try and bring new ideas to life, and a lot of it's done on mobile phones, so mostly focused on mobile devices. So today I was just going to talk about one of those experiences that I had built, which was kind of a interactive t-shirt that you could wear. And the technology behind that was clothing segmentation, in particular upper garment segmentation, which is essentially taking your shirt or whatever article of clothing you're wearing on top and finding the 2D boundary of it. So you can see on the screen here, just showing you kind of it's segmenting the shirts. I'm actually wearing a blue shirt underneath, but it's drawing different content on top of it. And one of the reasons this works so well is that it's using 2D machine learning, and it's rendering on the content that's already there versus trying to model and drape a three-dimensional shirt on top of your body. So really, it looks like almost like a new 3D object has been placed on your body, because it's incorporating the lighting and shadows and edges that are already there, but it also allows you to put new content on top of it. So it kind of, provides this cool and very accurate effect of showing something that they could be new versus what you're currently wearing. So the second part of the shirt lens I had built involved hand tracking. A lot of my lenses deal with tracking the hands in some ways. So like I mentioned, the lightsaber one, I also had a virtual hand puppet app that I had built called Yo Puppet that puts a kind of virtual puppet on your hand and you can make them talk and stuff. Your hands are very expressive, and I think they're probably one of the least utilized tools in our current AR. Part of that is just because they're hard to track. Your hands deform into over 1 billion different positions, and it's very hard to get an accurate idea of what the current pose of your hand is just based on a 2D camera image. But the plus side is that they're very good at building interaction within AR, because your hands can do so many different things. They can grab, they can wave, they can make different gestures. It's really almost limitless. And a lot of the AR experiences we saw prior to the 2020, let's say, involved mostly just interaction with your face or your environment. There wasn't a lot of ways you could manipulate it with your own body. So it's kind of exciting to see things like the 2D hand tracking that Snap had added last year. And then they also recently are adding 3D hand tracking to their array of tools for you to use. So I think those things will help open up a lot of new experiences as well. So I think that using your hands is a very good way to interact in AR. And I'll just play the video here. You can see my hand moving around. Also doing 2D segmentation here around the hand. So there's another aspect of something you can use and draw over as well. So in terms of the shirt segmentation that I use, there are some limitations. 2D segmentation means that you can't really turn your body. As you see, I turn around here, the 3D object isn't following it so well. There are some ways to get around that, such as also simultaneously tracking their pose in 3D and then kind of using that 2D segmentation to just crop out the 3D pose underneath. And I had done that with another lens as well. There's different ways to get around these limitations. A lot of it is just tricking your audience into thinking what they're seeing is fully 3D or whatever the intended effect you want is. So you really just have to work to the strengths of what you have and the tools that you have. And that's why I've always kind of enjoyed pushing the limits of, what's possible in AR, what new things can you build, what types of experiences can we create now that we weren't able to create last year. And this shirt that I posted, I wasn't really thinking much of it, but here's kind of the full effect. It was just drawing some like 3D cubes on the shirt, and also letting it turn into a full shirt if your hand's not in the picture. I think the reason this resonated with people was because it looks realistic. Number one, a lot of people thought this was a real shirt, which is not. And they, you can see the wrinkles in the clothing and everything. So it just looks a step of realism above, most of the 3D wearable stuff you saw prior to this. Just looks a little bit janky. There's things that aren't fitting quite well. They're not draping well. The lighting's not right. It's all these things that take you out of that immersion level and kind of put you into the uncanny valley where you think, okay, this is definitely not something real that they're wearing. You can look at this, it looks almost real. And the shirt I'm wearing underneath here is blue, but you wouldn't be able to tell. I mean, you'd have a hard time telling just on first glance that it's not a black shirt that I'm wearing here. And, on top of that, seeing the kind of pattern move around it makes you think, well, how are they, doing that so well? How are the edges so refined? So that's one of the great things about these kinds of tools, is they just open up new types of digital fashion. One of the interesting things about digital fashion is a really new idea, is that the physical fashion there's a lot of stupid things happening in physical fashion. Like there's kids who will go out and buy clothes one time, they'll take a picture for Instagram or whatever they want to take a picture for, and then they'll return it or throw it out, or even worse. And so, that's a lot of wasted time and energy and resources that doesn't necessarily need to happen if we can build a digital solution to make something much quicker and easier to get what they want. So I think that's, the essence of this short presentation. I just wanted to kind of demo this one lens. But if you want to see some of my other work, I post a lot of videos on Twitter. I recently just posted one with the spectacles that allows you to ride a horse in first person and joust. I have a lance that you can joust with. So like I said, my ideas are very dumb, but they're kind of fun at the same time. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and shoot right now. I have to pick up my kid in a few minutes as well from school. So let's hear any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Hart. It was excellent having you. Don't currently see any questions in the chat, but please feel free to post your information on the chat, and people will follow up with you on Twitter or Instagram. We've seen that to be most effective. I know we're over time as well, and I apologize for that, but we still have Lyron Bentovim here with us, and he can come on for a longer time period during the next session, but I just wanted to give him the chance to introduce himself now, and then he could hop on again in the near future. So let me just share my screen for 1 second here and introduce Lyron.
Yeah, Andy, no need to do all my kind
Okay.
of bio and stuff right now. That's
All right,
kind of
yeah, Lyron,
definitely unneeded. What I'm gonna do, I'll come back to the next session and take you guys through the story. So for those of you that don't know, the Glimpse Group, which is a platform company for virtual reality and augmented reality enterprise-focused companies, went public early in July. So I'm going to share with you a quick video, 50 seconds, just kind of teaser of kind of what it was like being on NASDAQ. And then I'll come back next week or next session and take you guys through the full kind of dream to reality story. So I'm going to try and share the video. That's always a challenging one, but we'll give it a shot.
Thanks, Lyron, and we look forward to having you on for longer capacity during the next session. Appreciate you being flexible.
Andy.
Hey.
Are you guys seeing the screen?
Yeah, it looks good. I don't hear any audio, but.
Celebrating a Thursday via fast at the NASDAQ. It's the Glimpse Group, focused on virtual and augmented reality.
Their platform is uniquely designed to meet the challenges of an emerging industry and fostering innovation, collaboration, and the development of a robust VR/AR ecosystem.
Today is a great day, not just for Glimpse, not just for the industry, but for entrepreneurs worldwide. We are seeing this as a first step in a journey, taking the world into the metaverse. The future is immersive. The future is Glimpse.
Awesome. Thank you, Lyron. And
so that's kind of the
Keep going.
end, so I can ruin the story, but I'll start from the beginning next time and take you guys from kind of thinking about starting a company in the immersive world to building it to taking it public, and kind of I'd love to do a Q&A then.
yeah, that sounds great. And we look forward to welcoming you back. Thanks so much, Lyron. With that, I'll give everyone their time back. I know it's 8:03 and everyone's bedtime. So we'll call it a meetup there. Thank you everyone for joining. It's been an excellent night. I'll keep the chat open just for a few minutes if you wanted to say hi to anyone else in the group. But thanks again for joining, and it's been a pleasure hosting the meetup tonight. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, guys. Sorry I went over. Oh, man. Sorry, Lyron. My bad.
No problem.
Cut the recording. Let me take that out of the recording.